We were just enjoying Scott flashing red there. So hi and welcome to another Tuesday Dux-Soup webinar. If you're new to these sessions, then allow me to introduce myself. I'm Jo Henderson and I work in the marketing team at Dux-Soup. I'm here every 2 weeks to help host these sessions along with experts from the Dux-Soup team. Today I have Giles with me and Scott, or guest hosts as well with genius LinkedIn automation insights. Today, I'm joined by Giles, our Head of Professional Services, and Scott, our Head of Sales. I know you'll all have some great questions for us, so all you need to do is add your question in the question box on the GoTo dashboard. And I will answer what I can as we go through. And as always, we'll save the best questions, or the meatiest questions, for Giles and Scott to cover at the end. I'll also be adding in various links to related articles as we go through. Giles will probably touch on some, Scott will touch on others, and I'll throw a few others as well in the chat function as we go through that I think might be useful. In addition to your questions, we also love receiving your reviews. So if there's anything in particular you love about Dux, or anything that piques your interest during the session today, and you'd like to share a review, then please go to G2. And if you use today's date, we'll be in touch to get your postal details so we can send you one of our limited edition packs. And we've got Tracy Enos, I think, on the page there, sharing hers as well. I think that's enough from me. Short and sweet today. So let me hand over to Giles to kick off how to generate sales with Dux-Soup and Sales Navigator.
Excellent. Thanks, Jo, for the introduction. And hello, good morning, good afternoon, or indeed good evening to anyone, wherever you may be in the world. And welcome to the latest in our series of free webinars. For anyone who's new to Dux-Soup, my name is Giles, Head of Professional Services here at Dux-Soup. And you've just heard from Jo, who's from our marketing team. And maybe we'll hear the voice shortly or a bit later of Scott, who's all the way over in San Francisco, who's our Head of Sales. Today, we're going to focus on how and why you would want to use Sales Navigator in conjunction with Dux-Soup, and how this combination can help you get more out of your lead generation process. It's going to be a mixture of some slides and a bit of live demo and lots of chat from myself and Scott, I suspect. So hopefully there's a little bit of something in here for everybody. I know we've got a good mix of non-Dux-Soup users. We've got some free LinkedIn users. We've got some Sales Nav users. We've got Turbo users. We've got all flavors of Dux-Soup and LinkedIn users here. So hopefully there's a little bit of something in here for everybody. One of the questions which always gets asked is this session being recorded? Of course it is. All of our sessions are recorded and will be made available to you in the coming hours. It'll also be made available via our website in the usual space. So let's crack on. What we're going to cover today, we're going to touch on what is Dux-Soup. Then we're going to talk about what is and why Sales Navigator, and why you would want to use that in conjunction with your lead generation automation activities. Spend a bit of time on Sales Navigator searches. We're going to talk about some pro actions, because I know we've got some Dux-Soup Pro users on the call. And then we're also going to talk about Dux-Soup campaigns for both Turbo and Cloud users, and how you can bring that all together. We're also going to talk about in-mails and the power of in-mails. Scott's going to give us some good insights, I think, into searches, and possibly touch on some campaign stuff as well. But that's pretty much what we're going to cover. We're going to do some slides, then we'll do some real life walkthroughs, and then hopefully plenty of time for all of your really insightful questions as well towards the end. Anyone who's not used Dux-Soup before, what is it? It's a Chrome extension, which you can use to mimic human behavior on the LinkedIn platform. There are 3 paid versions now. We've got the Pro version, which is coming up to 10 years old. We've got the Turbo version, and we've got the Cloud version, which was released last November. You use Dux-Soup to reach out and grow your network and nurture your current contacts. With both the Turbo and the Cloud version, you can build unlimited campaigns to fully automate your outreach actions. With the Pro version, you can use it basically to do single action, real-time activities on your behalf and automate your outreach that way as well. All of the details of all the versions are available on our website, and you can see a breakdown of all the list of functionalities. And if you've not used Dux-Soup before, if you're a non-user, just go to the Chrome Web Store or the Dux-Soup website and install it, and you get 14 days free of the Turbo version. So you get all the bells and whistles, all of the functionality of the Turbo version. The only restriction is it's for 14 days. If you need to during that time, then you can always arrange a demo call through our support team. If you ping our support team message, you can arrange a demo with either myself or Scott. We can take you through how to use the product, how to get the most out of it. So make sure you're available. Make sure you use those links that will be available. I'm sure that Jo will share shortly. And yeah, make sure you do that. So that's what Dux-Soup is. Now, what is Sales Navigator? Anybody who's not got Sales Navigator or has not been aware of what Sales Navigator is, it's a premium platform offered by LinkedIn to help professionals in finding and engaging and building relationships. The big plus of Sales Navigator is that you have vastly enhanced search filters. You've got this ability to be able to filter your search criteria to much greater level of detail than in regular LinkedIn. You've also got a premium messaging capability. It's called InMails. We'll touch on InMails as we go through this. We can then build lead lists, and you can actually, Sales Navigator will auto-generate recommendations based upon the criteria that you're defining in your Sales Navigator environment. And depending on the tier of Sales Navigator, there are also team collaboration possibilities available in the Sales Navigator platform. All three versions of Dux-Soup work with Sales Navigator. So be aware that both the Pro, the Turbo, and the Cloud versions all work seamlessly with Sales Navigator for your outreach possibilities. And we'll be touching a lot of that as we go through. And there was something else I was going to mention then as well, but I think I was going to go to the next slide and then it'll come back to me. So why Sales Navigator? I know what I was going to mention now. So why Sales Navigator? So there are actually a number of different premium paid versions of LinkedIn. If you've got a standard basic free version of LinkedIn and you go to premium upgrade button, LinkedIn take you through a series of questions. Depending on how you answer those questions, LinkedIn will then point you towards what they believe is the most appropriate premium version. And there's everything from basically a career version, which I think is in the region of $30, $35 a month, all the way through to Sales Navigator and even to Recruiter, which you can be paying hundreds of dollars a month for. So there's everything in between those those extremes. So you've got free, you've got $30, you've got all the way up to $80 to $100 for Sales Nav, depending on the edition, and up to $400 or $500 for the Recruiter version. Now, one of the things that we are seeing more and more is that if you want to do anything at scale with regards to lead gen on LinkedIn, we recommend that you use a premium version of LinkedIn. Now, whether that's the career version, the Recruiter version, or something in between, actually the sweet spot that we're seeing working very well is the Sales Navigator version. You get a lot of value out of it. You get lots of extra functionality with regard to searching, the team collaboration, and the InMails. But these two blog posts here should be of interest to you, depending on what your requirements are. This will sort of the first one outlines the limitations that LinkedIn are putting in place, especially for free LinkedIn users. And the second one touches on how you keep your LinkedIn account safe. So all of these factors come together to sort of push anybody who's doing things at scale on LinkedIn to using something that's a premium version. And in this case, we're touching on the Sales Navigator version. Now, we've actually got another blog post on our website, which goes through a breakdown of all of those different LinkedIn versions. And I'm sure Joe will be adding that to the handouts, sorry, or to the chat box accordingly, so that you can find that article as well. So we've got a breakdown of all the different versions there in a blog post as well. So that's why we're talking about Sales Navigator, this additional functionality. Because when it comes to performing lead generation on LinkedIn, we basically need to compile good lists. And how do we create a good list? We actually perform a search in LinkedIn. That's usually the first port of call. Whenever we're doing anything on LinkedIn, whether we're reaching out to individuals or we're trying to find people within an organization, whatever it may be, your search criteria is the absolute basis for everything. And as we can see here, with the Sales Navigator search, you get a bigger search result than if you regular LinkedIn. Now, one of the things in LinkedIn is they only ever show you 100 pages of a research result. So in regular LinkedIn, you will see 1,000 results. In Sales Navigator, excuse me, in Sales Navigator, you see 2,500 results. So immediately you're seeing a broader result. But a broader result doesn't necessarily mean a better result, because when you're carrying out your search, you want to narrow down that criteria as much as possible so that you can target as specifically as possible. Scott, do you want to jump in there?
No, yeah, I think it's important to, like Giles, just stressing on this a little bit further, like the search and being able to only see 2,500. You may see in the top right hand corner that it says 13,500 people, or a million or whatnot, but you really are only going to be able to get access to those first 2,500. If you did want to break that down and really get to those wider population of all those people, you can break it down by, you know, territories, maybe states, things like that, different ways to sort of chop it up, different globally location things of that area. But furthermore, just personalize, using your searches to personalize your messaging as well, which I'll talk more about when you're doing a demo here in just a second.
Yeah, and that's a really key point as well. When you carry out a search and you build a list, you want to make sure that whatever the list you built, you then tailor your approach to that list. Excuse me. So there's functions such as Boolean searches. There's loads of other filters which we're going to touch upon. And one of the things to also make you, or four of the things to also make use of are you can define personas in Sales Navigator. You can follow accounts in Sales Navigator. You can create custom lead lists in Sales Nav. And there's also this great function within the search criteria to exclude, to specifically exclude people. So maybe you're looking for only individuals of a certain level of seniority. So you can exclude entry-level people or trainees, for example. And we'll touch on all of that when I do the demo in a minute. So make sure you're using all of this functionality. You're saving your searches and you're reviewing things. You're building really good tight lists and then matching that up with your campaign or outreach strategies. So when it comes to reaching out, we're going to touch upon all of the three different versions of Dux-Soup here. Those who are using Pro, you'll probably be familiar with a lot of this terminology. So once you've built your search list or you've created your lead list perhaps, what you can then use with Dux-Soup Pro is you can then get Dux-Soup to auto-visit all of those profiles. And now, depending on what degree of connectivity, you may want to direct message those people if they're first degree. You can do a visit and connect if they're second or third degree. And you can also use Dux-Soup to in-mail people directly. And there's this fantastic feature within Dux-Soup where we can get Dux-Soup to target open link profiles. And now there's going to be a blog post that Joe's going to share with you, which gives you sort of 5 tricks to target those in-mail, those open link profiles. It's had a fantastic response. I think we first touched on this in a webinar about 2 years ago, and I still get messages from people to this day saying, I've just watched your webinar from May 2022, which touched upon the in-mail functionality, and I'm still getting amazing results. So do have a look at that, whether you're a pro user, turbo or cloud, because it crosses all boundaries there of all 3 versions, and we will go into that a little bit further in the webinar. So with Dux-Soup Pro, you define your list and then you decide on your action. Of course, you make sure you've got those correct filters in place. When it comes to turbo and cloud, of course, if you're using Dux-Soup Turbo or Cloud and you're using Sales Navigator, you've defined your list, you've got your lead list defined, you then can build your campaigns, and tailoring those campaigns to your specific audience is absolutely key. And that's where you can build unlimited campaigns. You build as many as you like. You can tailor each specific campaign to each specific search result. And you can have up to 12 steps in a campaign. And I know Scott's going to chip in when we come to actually doing the campaign building. So I'm going to keep him quiet for now so I get to the end of the slides and we can get onto the juicy bit. Then, of course, as always with Dux-Soup Turbo and Cloud, you manage all of your outreach through the campaign. You do all of your monitoring. And similarly here, we can also build campaigns which include an in-mail step and target only those open link profiles. Now, remember, you also get in-mail credits from LinkedIn. So you have these with a regular Sales Navigator subscription, you get 50 credits per month, and you can carry forward up to 3 months worth. So everyone can have a maximum of 150 credits. And remember, if somebody responds to you within, I think it's 90 days, you get your credit back. So whilst you can burn through your credits quite quickly if you use automation, you can do that and you get your responses. That's great. But the open link activity that we're talking about here allows you to target over and above those free credits. So you don't burn your credits, you just target people who accept in-mails without you spending a credit. So that's something we'll have a look at as well. When you're running Turbo and Cloud as well, then you just want to make sure you've got your campaign ready, you define your list, and then you do your enrollment actions. And we can do that from a number of different places. The most obvious one, of course, being the search result, where you can do it individually or in bulk. You can also run the enrollment from a lead list, or indeed you can upload your own CSV file if you've got the LinkedIn URLs available. Lots of people use different sources for gathering LinkedIn URLs. You can, of course, use the scan function within Dux-Soup to do that. we'll disappear down that rabbit hole if that question comes up towards the end of the webinar. So one last thing on in-mails. All paid Dux-Soup editions can help you unlock more outreach using in-mail functions if Sales Nav. Pro users, you can use those while auto-visiting and make use of that open profiles function. And then with Turbo and Cloud, you incorporate your in-mails. And when you do your enrollment, you make use of that open profile, that skipping functionality to make sure you're only targeting those people with that open link profile. That should hopefully all make sense when it comes to the demo in a moment. Let's stop putting it off and let's get on with the demo, shall we? That's probably going to be hopefully answering lots of questions. Right, first things first, this is me on LinkedIn. If anybody wants to send me a connection request, please do so. Very happy to connect with any attendees of LinkedIn of Dux-Soup webinars. Just ping me a message, but also mention Dux-Soup in your connection request, because then I know how you found me. It makes it easier for me to respond and know how you've come across me in LinkedIn. So feel free to reach out. Very, very happy to engage with people on the platform. So first things first, we're going to go to Sales Navigator. So up here in the top right-hand corner, I've got my link to Sales Navigator. If it's going to respond, there we go. Hopefully it's awake and hopefully everybody can see my screen nice and clearly. There we are. I'm now in Sales Navigator. So what we want to do now is build a search result. Now, we could go through this step by step and actually build a search result, but here's one I prepared earlier. Here under my saved searches, I've prepared a saved search that I carried out earlier today. And now I've used a Boolean search criteria term here to carry out this search. So we'll see in a second, under my search keywords, I've put in IT and consultant. Now I can use the operatives, the and, or, and not to really define the keywords that I'm looking for. And hopefully Joe can add into the chat box the link to the searching and filtering blog, which outlines all of the functionality around just being able to use those search terms in here in the keyword search. What I've also done here is I've also added in a bunch of other filters. Now I can put in company type here. I can put in where the head count, etc., etc. What you'll see here on the left-hand side is I've also specifically identified some seniority levels and specifically excluded, which I think is really, really important. You want to make sure that your search result is as narrow as possible, is as specific as possible for what you're looking for. If we go down the left-hand side here as well, I've then specifically looked at a couple of particular areas local to where I am. And then I've also made sure here that in this section here under the workflow section, I'm excluding people that I have previously viewed or previously messaged. Now, if you've got more than 2,500 people in your search results here, so I've got 1,500 here. So if I just get rid of the viewed one. So now if I'm only excluding the people I've messaged, we'll see in a second that this search result will go up to, drum roll, oh, it's still about the same, there we go. I was expecting it to be a bit higher. But what we can do here is, we can actually include people I've viewed or exclude. Now, if your search result is bigger than 2,500, you always exclude viewed people. As you go through that search result, you will be constantly topping up that search result with new prospects. So make sure you use that as well.
And real quick, just adding into that, Giles, excluding the viewed is also really decent because let's say that you've used Sales Navigator and Dux-Soup already before and you launched a campaign and maybe the campaign has a connection request in it and the connection request is out, but it hasn't been accepted yet, right? Well, then they would potentially still appear in the search that you're conducting here if they're like a second and third degree, right? Because they haven't turned into a first, but you have an invite that's standing out. So excluding the viewed profile here would make sure that that person would be excluded in that. And so you have a fresh batch of contacts.
Absolutely. And then always key as well here is to make sure that you're only looking at the degree of connectivities that you want. So here I'm only interested in outreaching for growing my network. So I'm specifically looking at first and second degree connections. I am not interested in first degree connections. I'm already connected to those people. So I don't want them to appear in this particular search. And now there's one thing that I know Scott wants to chip in here as well around recent updates.
Yeah, I think that this is one that people sort of skim over quite often, but it's important to really just kind of think about what it is that this is. And those two are the changed jobs and posted on LinkedIn in the last 90 days, right? Posted on LinkedIn in the last 90 days or 30 days, sorry, posted on LinkedIn in the last 30 days That is when you're conducting these searches, I highly recommend that when you're approaching this, let's say, so there's 1,500 here, right? Giles turns this on and there's 295, I think is what it said, right? 285, sorry.
Yeah.
So I would target those 285 people first. Why? Because they're going to be more likely to respond to you on LinkedIn, because they just posted on LinkedIn, right? So depending on where it is that you're starting to go to. The other one is change jobs in the last 90 days. So turn that one on as well, real quick. Not either, yeah. So if you have change job in the last 90 days, it's great because what you can always do is do something like, hey, first name, congrats on the new role. How's it been for you so far? Would love to connect and chat, right? Even if you want to connect and chat about something else, you're making it personalized by turning that on and sort of just greeting the fact that they've changed jobs in the last 90 days. I started working for Dux-Soup about maybe around 90 days ago, right? And I had a campaign where I said, congrats on the new role, first name. I've also taken up the reins here at Dux-Soup and would love to chat with you about this, and whatnot. And that's been a fantastic way for me to personalize my connection results. Now, if you have both of these turned on, posted on LinkedIn and changed jobs in the last 30 days as well, you can see that our results are very small because of that population of 1,500, there's only 21 that meet both of those parameters. So when doing this, you may want to do, post it on LinkedIn first and then maybe change jobs next, and you can have different campaigns going out to each of those. But these are ways that you can go ahead and tee up to make your campaign a lot more personalized, which you can't do in regular LinkedIn search.
Yeah, and this posted on LinkedIn one, those are people you know are active on LinkedIn. There's a huge number of, should we say, for want of a better expression, dormant LinkedIn accounts. Many people, they've got an account, they never log on. Now, one thing you will be sure of is actually the order in which this search result is presented to you is actually related to the SSI of the individuals. And if I'm talking about something completely off the wall here for people, the SSI is your social selling index. So your social selling index is basically your rating on the LinkedIn platform based upon your behavior on their platform. It's kind of like giving you it's a rating. The better your SSI, the higher up a search result you will become. So you can be sure that the people near the top of this search result have got better SSI and are therefore more likely to be engaging with you on the LinkedIn platform. So that's something to consider as well. But all of these things help you to narrow down your search results.
And actually, that's a great point. And one more piece to add to this, talking about the results that you're seeing, we just wanted to point this out. It's funny. It's like, I don't remember the last time I went to the second page of Google, right? And so while that's not the case totally here, but it's important to note that when you have a search here, that you sort of go through the pages, maybe go through the first one or two, which are going to be your top prospects, right? The ones who are going to meet your search criteria specifically. But as you start getting further down the pipeline, you may want to be careful. I mean, there's only 49 in this specific search, but if you start getting into page 8, 9, 10, you might start seeing, some results that are a little different. It may be time for you to evaluate and readjust your search so that you can get net new prospects again in there, if that comes to the case.
Yeah. So what we've got here now, we've got our search result. We're happy with our search result. So now we're just going to talk through a couple of scenarios, what we're going to do. So if we imagine now I'm a pro user, so we're on the base level, basically the lowest price version of Dux-Soup, my options here would be to click on my Dux-Soup icon here, and I could either visit the profiles or visit and connect to those profiles. We're going to just touch on this quite quickly. If I wanted to visit and connect, I could turn this on and I could send my connection request, hit visit and connect. Dux-Soup would start at the top of the list, open each profile in turn, and send that connection request. If I wanted to in-mail people on this list, so let's just take a couple of these people here a second. I need to just turn that one off. I think it's going to be easier. I'm going to find. So if we look at this list here a second, and let's just look at the 285 because I know we've got some better results then. If we look at the person at the top of this list, for example, and this is to illustrate the in-mail option that we have with Dux-Soup. If we look at this particular person here, if I was to message this individual here, it's going to use one of my credits. So if I wanted to in-mail this particular person, it's going to use one of my credits. Now, I don't want to burn all my credits, but what we can do with Dux-Soup, and let's see if this next person is a good example, fingers crossed, because it's not always clear. We have to try things here. If we message this person, there we go. There we hit the jackpot straight away. We can see here, this is free to an open profile. So this is an open link profile. So what we can do then is if we wanted to send in-mails out to people who accept free in-mails here, and we are a pro user, we click on our Dux-Soup icon, we go to our options, we go and turn on our in-mail option here, and we make sure we populate our message in here. Now, one thing to remember, when you write your in-mail here, you've usually got an auto signature in your in-mail message when you start typing in LinkedIn. So don't sign this off, otherwise you'll have a duplicate signature and it'll look really automated. So there we are, we've got our in-mail created here. And the thing we do to make sure we target only those with open link profiles, we go to our skipping rules here and we say skip if not an open link member. It's as simple as that. We go back to our search result here and we say, right, Dux-Soup, please just go and visit those profiles. And it will skip past the guy who's at the top because he's not got an open link, and it'll go to Willemine's profile and send her the email. It's as simple as that, and it'll only go to those people who have got that open link membership. Dux-Soup can auto detect that from this page here, so you don't have to go through line by line and check it.
And that works the same on all three of our tiers of Dux-Soup.
Yeah, we're going to touch on the enrollment thing in a second. So this is Pro. Remember, we're doing here visit and connect, whatever it may be, accordingly. So if we now think about Turbo then, we've got our search result here. The first thing we want to do is, of course, create a campaign around this particular population or group of individuals. We click on our Dux-Soup icon, and hopefully this is familiar to many of you who are using Cloud or Turbo, and maybe even some of the pro users who've sat through some of these webinars before should be familiar with a lot of this. If we go down to our Dux dash down the bottom here, I already had it open, there we go. What I've got here is some drip campaigns that I've defined in the past, and down the bottom here I've created a couple of new ones for today's webinar. So the first one here, experienced IT consultants in North Brabant. One is without an in-mail. So here I've got an example of a campaign. It's got a connection request here, then it's got a follow-up, and then it's got another follow-up. Now I could add, of course, further steps to this campaign depending on what I want to do. You know, there's all sorts of different options that we can put in here. We can put auto visits, we can put further messages in there. One thing to bear in mind is if you're doing auto visits as part of your campaigns, remember only premium members are likely to see that. And second of all, if you're doing lots of auto visits in quick succession, they usually get lost, because if you're messaging people and auto visiting them, that probably gets lost. They're going to see the messages anyway, and Dux-Soup has to visit a profile to message them. So just bear that in mind if you're putting auto visits into your campaign. So here's my campaign with no in-mail. So we can see that there. So if I wanted to put people into this campaign, I could go to my Dux-Soup, go back to my Sales Navigator search, and I've got two options from this page. I can use the widgets at the side, and I can, from my drop-down list here, there you are. I can select one of my campaigns there. I've got them turned off, which is why they're grayed out. And I could just press the enroll button per person. I could scroll down and do it line by line. That's quite a good way of doing it, because it gives you the sense of checking each line by line, and it gives you that safety sort of safety valve, as it were, to make sure that you're putting the people you want in there. The optimal way of using this, of course, is to create a really good search result, be really happy with the content, and then do everything in bulk, because that's when you really benefit from the automation side of things. Click on your Dux icon, press enroll profiles, go and select your campaign, in this case this one, and then put however many people you want in there. Now I would say handle that with care though. Remember that there's all sorts of mechanisms in the background throttling your behavior from Dux-Soup point of view, the number of connection requests you send out per day, the number of messages, etc., etc. Remember that you may not want to queue up 6 months worth of connection requests. You might not want to go in here and put 5,000 or 2,500 or whatever. You may only want to put a week's worth. Now, my settings are currently set up to send out 25 invites a day. So I would probably think in time periods of a week. So I might go in here and I put 125, press OK, and then Dux-Soup would take the first 125 people on this list that have not gone into this campaign before and enroll them, start that process, and it'll start queuing up those activities. Now, that's great, but I've also got, for those who were paying attention, I've also got a campaign here which has got an in-mail in it. So here we are, I've got my in-mail in there. and then I've got my connection request and various follow-up messages. So I could first of all do a run through this particular search result and target all those people with that free in-mail. So I can go into my search result, I can select in my Dux-Soup options, let's turn that one off because we don't need that anymore. We make sure that we've got our skip if not an open link member. We've enabled that one. We're going in here and then we're going to do our enrollments from here. But now we're going to only enroll those people in the in-mail one who've got an open link. So they are selected skipping, not open link. So then we are going to be only targeting those people with that free in-mail capability. It's a great way to do it, and really when you've got a search result such as this, you'll probably find somewhere between 10 and 20% of the total list will have free in-mails. That's usually what I find. Scott, is that similar to what you see?
Yeah, it is. It also matches up in terms of emails, but not to go down another rabbit hole here. But yeah, it does. That does sort of fit the mold here. So yeah, seeing about 10% of them be the free in-mails, and the rest of them will take credits, right? So making sure that you're thinking through your search here and running maybe the first list of people who you know you're going to be able to send in-mails out and have that connection message, and then have a separate campaign, which you're showing here, with just a connection request for everybody else. You could also just have Dux-Soup run through and spend an in-mail credit, right? But you most likely won't go that far unless you happen to have thousands and thousands of in-mails, right? Which I think is a recruiter thing. And also, I do not believe you can purchase any more in-mails if you're on Sales Navigator. Yeah, if you're on Sales Navigator.
Yeah, that's correct. There's no top-up feature. So now one of the things that, and we could disappear down campaign rabbit holes here, is what you could do, and this is, theoretically, you could, in your campaign which contains an in-mail, your first step here could be an auto visit. And bear with me here. The reason for that would be that the first step would happen quite quickly, and then you can go back to your search results and make sure that you're excluding anybody you've already viewed, and then you've got all of those people left in your search result will not accept a free in-mail, and you can put them into your other campaign. So that way you can actually quite quickly have two campaigns running in parallel, one with in-mails, one without in-mails, and be targeting that same list with a similar approach, but targeting those free in-mails as a priority there.
Yep. And adding one more piece to this, which is on the same note, but just slightly different here in terms of organizing your process here, is leveraging Sales Navigator lists as well. And so what you could do in these cases is maybe instead of enrolling one by one, or maybe you're not sure on your search per se, what you can do is you can select all the people on here and leverage the Sales Navigator lists, create a list, a lead list inside of Sales Navigator, and then launch Dux-Soup on that list. So then you know that everybody in that lead list is already been handpicked and curated by yourself, and then you can launch Dux-Soup. So it's kind of like, organizing your list a little bit more upfront rather than doing it currently or just sort of running it all through the search, but different ways to sort of go about it. And you can include these lead lists and exclude them in your search as well. That's another part.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Now, lead lists, for anybody who's not aware, you can save people specifically to a lead list, or you can have a lead, LinkedIn will auto-generate some lead lists depending on your activity. So here, for example, I've got an auto-generated lead list. Now, the thing about a lead list is it's static. So a search result is dynamic. Depending on what people are doing, depending on what they've got in their profile, your search result will change hourly or at least daily anyway. So there are some differences, there's some different nuances in the way that Dux-Soup behaves on both of these lists. What you'll notice with a lead list such as this, there you are, the icon's turned green. I don't have a widget now because I can specify who goes onto this list, so I cannot cherry pick who I can enroll from here. So bear that in mind. You save somebody to a lead list and you want to enroll from here. Yes, you can still do it, but you can only do it in bulk. So that's something to be aware of there. Also be aware that there is also not enough data on this particular page if you're enrolling from here for Dux-Soup to be able to do everything from here. So actually what you'll see is that there'll be another step, an enrollment step queued up in the Dux dash if you're doing that from this particular environment. In a similar way to when you do it via a custom URL list, a CSV file. But, that's another rabbit hole that maybe we shouldn't disappear down today. Okay, so let's just have a look back and see what we were going to cover, because I want to make sure we've covered everything. That's also important. We've covered what Dux-Soup is. Hopefully we've talked about the pro version, the turbo version, and the cloud version. We've talked about what Sales Navigator is and why you may want to consider Sales Navigator, or at least a premium version of LinkedIn when it comes to doing anything at scale on LinkedIn. We've covered Sales Navigator searches in quite extensive detail here. We've talked about how we can enroll people into campaigns if we've got Turbo and Cloud, and also our pro actions. And specifically, we've talked about in-mails and harnessing that extra premium messaging service that that LinkedIn give us access to based upon those premium versions. Our checklist, yeah. Understand the benefits of Sales Nav. Use all of your search criteria. You always find extra search criteria in Sales Navigator, whether it's excluding something else, making those Boolean search terms really, really powerful using the and, or, and not functions. Pro, always confirm your actions. Understand what's the group you're targeting. Is it first degree connections? Is it second and third? Are you in-mailing? Are you not? With Turbo and Cloud users, always consider using your in-mails in your campaigns, because what I've seen from people who've taken this up, you've got 50 credits a month, but we know there are users out there who can send in excess of 400 in-mails a month, which is over and above those normal credits, by targeting those open link profiles. And they've had fantastic response rates, because the in-mails, you can send a slightly longer message, you can put much more conversational content in there, and those sorts of things. Now, I've been talking for plenty of time here, and Scott's been interrupting me as well. This is the webinar that we're doing in 2 weeks' time, so please get your questions in now while I'm just covering this a second. In 2 weeks' time, we're going to be talking about the benefits of upgrading from Pro to Cloud. So Cloud is the new version that we launched in November last year, and it's had a fantastic uptake. We've really sort of seen the functionality growing here with Dux-Soup. Dux-Soup's been around for nearly 10 years. 5 years ago was the Turbo introduction. Last year, we've introduced the Cloud version to really great response. So we're going to be touching upon that. Myself and Scott will be here again in 2 weeks' time, and of course Joe will be as well. And then just a reminder, if you need extra support, if you need extra help with Dux-Soup, we've got the opportunity if you can book a support call if you're stuck. So all of our support is online. So through our support portal, our support team will answer your questions. If they can't solve your problem, they will help you arrange a free support call. If you need extra consultation or extra help with setting up your campaigns, or maybe your integrations, maybe you're building some zaps or some scenarios or whatever, and you need to set up a booster session or a training session, something like that, we have those opportunities there through our website as well. And we've got loads of tutorials, blogs, case studies, etc., all over the website. So there's loads of resources there that you can always find through our support team. I'm now going to stall briefly while Joe is obviously frantically typing and answering the last questions.
Here we go. Do you know what? It's been a really good session. There aren't that many questions. I think it's because what you've gone through has been so detailed.
Joe, I'm slightly worried that you were surprised when you said that was a really good session. Thanks.
You just shocked me. I'm sure as I start talking now, some more will roll in. Yes, the webinar will be sent to you. You'll get it on an email a bit later today. We also always upload it to our webinar pages, so you can go and look back at years and years worth of previous webinars. So here I'm going to ask you, Giles, I've sent the document already, but Joe asked, how do you prevent getting flagged by LinkedIn and getting banned? I've tried a few of these in the past, slowly scaled up and was immediately flagged. What would be your recommendation?
Start slowly and walk before you can run.
Yeah, I think, well, it really depends. I mean, on your throttle, if you're paying, obviously you're using Sales Navigator, so you're paying LinkedIn. Your social selling index as well is decent, and I like to use a baseline of, you have an average connection rate of about 20% is a good baseline to look for. Every 100 invites you send out, 20 are accepting on average, right? Then you can increase your throttle slowly but surely, right? In these cases, and I increase gradually week by week, so from 25 to maybe 30. But then when I get to around 50 or 60, I'm kind of like heating myself from there. And if you have built your campaign successfully in a decent way, having about 40 to 50 connection requests per day should keep you more than inundated with conversations in this case, right? Giles, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I see so many people who like to roll the clock back to sort of 3-4 years ago when you could send literally hundreds of invites a day and nobody cared. It was a bit of a free for all, to be honest. And actually, the way that it works now, it encourages people into much more sustainable, much smarter behavior. You define better lists. You do a bit more work up front to define a better quality list. So you target better because you're going to send out a limited number of connection requests. Because you're doing that, you then get better responses. You find better quality leads. So you don't need to use the scattergun approach anymore. So, I mean, I tell this story all the time. I did a campaign last year. I started at 25 invites a day. And then after a week, I went to 30 a day. And then after another week, I went to 35 a day. I triggered one warning from LinkedIn. I think it was in the third week. And then I just slowed down for 1 week and then I carried on. And eventually I was reaching 65 invites a day. And I thought, okay, I've proven my point here. You can warm things up. Now, on that particular campaign, I was getting a really good response rate. It was 47%. But what I tend to see is for most people I speak to who've been doing this for any length of time, there is a sweet spot. You ideally want to bob along just below that ceiling of triggering the warning. And for most people, it's somewhere between 40 and 60 invites a day. If you're sending out 60 invites a day, 5 days a week, and you're getting 300 invites out there and you're getting 30–40% acceptance rates, you're getting a lot of new, fresh, hopefully good quality leads. That's going to take a lot of time to follow up with and to really give them your attention. So it's not a case of running, it's a case of walking steadily, but making sure you're putting the effort in up front, because then you'll get better quality results in the long term.
And if you're not seeing,
answer to a very quick question.
No, but yeah, it's great because it's a very, very important. And if you're not seeing those sort of percentage metrics of acceptance rates or even responsiveness, then that's why you leverage something like the Dux-Dash for the Turbo and for the cloud users who have that, who you can see your acceptance rate. You can see the response rate of your campaigns in those cases with Turbo and cloud.
And if your acceptance and response rates are not reaching that level, then you need to review your process. You're either not targeting correctly, or your profile doesn't look good enough, or there's not enough content, or your messaging's not hitting the mark. So all of these things come through. They all factor in helping you make those decisions.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. So there's been a few about open profiles and InMail, so I'm going to ask them anyway, because there's a bit of commonality in the theme. Are there any limits on the amount of open profile InMails per month?
The most I've heard that somebody's been able to send is just over 400 a month.
Okay.
I personally have not tested it to that extent. I've tested it, but the most I've heard somebody send out is just over 400 free InMails per month. I'm sure there is a limit. I've not found it myself.
Yeah, same. I think I've heard also, I've seen 250 as something that LinkedIn talks about on their website here and there at times, but I have heard people do more a lot of times as well.
I suspect a lot of that depends upon your success rate and response rate as well. So it's like your connection requests as well. You know, if you send out a couple of hundred free InMails and 100 people respond, you're doing something right. So they'll let you do more.
Yeah. Okay. Leo has asked, will it ever be possible to have a single campaign that sends a connection request and then sends an InMail if the contact doesn't accept after a certain number of days?
That's a really good question. For anybody who was at the webinar earlier this year, or was it the back end of last year when Will was last on? I can't remember now. It's all kind of merged into one. I think it was the end of last year. We did a review with Will. One of the things we talked about as a development coming through for Dux-Soup this year is the potential for scenario-based campaigns, and I think this is what we're touching upon here. Currently, all our campaigns are linear, so you start at one end and it goes through logically based upon time and certain actions, whether that's an acceptance or a response, for example, which would allow it to continue or would stop it. I believe that during the course of this year, we're going to see an evolution towards more scenario-based campaigns, whereby there'll be, should we say, forks in the road, depending upon what happens, depending on timeframes. But yeah, keep an eye on the development. The product is always going forward, and Will is always looking for ideas. It may be also, if we've got access to it, and maybe I can find it in a second, we have the user suggestions page.
I've done that.
which I got the link there. Cool, you beat me to it, Joe. Awesome, thank you.
Yeah. So if anyone to have a look.
Have a look on there. I believe that suggestion may already be there, in which case add a comment, upvote it, because then it'll get more attention. So yeah, but I think we're going to see, yeah, I think we're looking at potentially, yeah, scenario-based campaigns and potentially more AI possibilities going forward as well.
Okay, fabulous, thank you very much. Now there's another open link related one. Are the connection request limits you've just spoken about inclusive with the open link and emails?
In-mails are separate to connection requests. So in-mails count as in Dux-Soup terminology, direct messages. What I'll try to do is while we're sitting here, I will try to find the link to the support article which explains what a direct message is. And yeah, maybe Scott would like to talk about that while I'm looking for it.
Well, in terms of having the in-mails be sent out, right? Yeah, you can send those out to second and third degrees. You get, depending on what level of Sales Navigator you have, you get about 50 credits a month, right? And you get one of those credits back if somebody replies to you within, I think it's what, a few days, something like that, or about a week, a couple of weeks. I can't quite recall, but there's a way to get that back.
In-mails 90 days.
90 days. There you go. Thank you. And then, yeah, that's completely separate and completely different than, you know, sending out connection requests in that case, right? Which in that area, the default that Dux-Soup is set to is to send out 25 per day, but that can always be adjusted. I don't know if that answered the question, but
yeah. So direct messages count as in-mails count as direct messages, or in other words, also messages to your existing network. So there's a separate throttle for that in the Dux-Soup settings, and I've just added the link to how you can find the throttling tab in your Dux-Soup options there and understand that accordingly. It's also included in both those blog posts, I believe, around weekly limits and keeping your account safe.
Absolutely. Thanks for that one. So Leo has said, is it possible to add in a unique link into a message to each contact in a campaign? For example, a custom video or URL?
Yep, 100%. If it's a link, it'll fit, and Dux-Soup will eat it. It's important though to also when you're going this route, it's important to know like how this is just a little tip for you, like how your link is going to be perceived on the other side. And so if you're utilizing Sales Navigator and you're sending out the messages through Sales Navigator and you include a link, the thumbnail may not show, right? But if that in Dux-Soup in the Turbo and the Pro version, in the Turbo and the Cloud version, you have the ability to tell Dux-Soup which inbox you'd like it to go to. So you could have it go to your regular or your Sales Nav inbox, right? And if you have it go to the regular, then when you include a link, Dux-Soup LinkedIn will render the thumbnail to show up with that person on regular LinkedIn.
Was the question there a custom link? Was it, Joe? Was it
a custom link? Yeah.
So you can use a standard link across your messages, but you cannot use a custom link per person unless you're using the markers. Unless you're using the markers as part of that link. Yeah. So handle that answer with care. Handle that answer with care. But yeah, if that user wants to message the support team as well, we can go into more detail about the possibilities there, because you can customize a link by using, for example, the markers. And we ran an example, for example, when we sent out when we did our Christmas greeting URLs back end of last year, we did a webinar on that one. So we used the custom markers _FN_, for example, to put out the first name. So that could become a custom URL depending on what the criteria is for that URL.
Correct. Apologies. I was speaking on links in general. Yes, correct.
Sorry.
Let's have a look. Thanks, Leo. Yeah, he's just said yes, custom link. This is from John. If you used Sales Nav before and then went off and came back on, will it still retain the information, such as tags?
Dux-Soup will remember tags. Now, years ago, there used to be Sales Navigator tags as well, but they discontinued those rather unhelpfully. And that was a completely different thing that LinkedIn had, and then they got rid of.
There is one thing that I've experienced as well, where maybe a company is paying for your sales navigator, and then you leave the company, and then you don't get access to that sales nav anymore, but maybe you get it at your next company. There is a way to bring your data over from before, but you have to contact LinkedIn and request that from them, and they can go ahead and have you go through that process. I've had it done before.
Thank you for that. Can you share your SSI on LinkedIn? That's from Alex.
Well, can I share my SSI on LinkedIn? I'm happy to. That's not a problem.
I'm not sure if that's what, yeah, maybe. I'm not 100% sure what you mean, Alex.
Maybe they mean can they look to see? So I mean, my SSI is rather poor at the moment. But there we go. I've not been doing a huge amount on here, but other than testing, so mine's actually gone down quite a lot recently. What I'll do though is I'll put the link into the chat box as to how you can find your SSI. Now you don't actually need a premium version of LinkedIn to be able to find it. It's just there's no link anywhere if you've not got premium. But there's the URL to be able to do it. Recently I've encountered a few people who have been able to manage their SSI above 70 on a regular basis and been able to maintain it up there. It does take effort, it does take time, it does take an investment of your time and a focus. You need to be engaging with people, you need to be messaging people, you need to be responding to posts. You can't just be sitting there spamming people. That will not give your SSI a boost. Not sustainably anyway.
Let's have a look at another one. Ravi has asked, can you tell me why there is a big gap between enroll and invited?
Yes, usually to do with the throttling. So for example, if you have got, maybe you've put 200 people into your campaign, and you rolled 200 people in there, and you've maybe sending out 25 invites a day. Based upon your throttling. Let's go and have a look at it properly. So we're going to our Dux-Soup options here. We go through our options and we look at our throttling settings. Here we can see that mine is set to, let's zoom in a bit so that everyone can see it nice and clearly. There we go. Mine is set to send 25 invites a day. If I now enrolled 200 people, it's only going to send 25 invites a day. So it's going to take the best part of 2 weeks to send out all those invites. So what we'll see is we see a differentiation between, in my funnel flow, I'd see 200 enrolled, and then after one day, hopefully I'd see 25 invited, then 50 invited, then 75 invited. That's the reason that you would see that. You know, the bottleneck is always going to be your connection requests, because that's what LinkedIn are doing in order to safeguard their environment, should we say, make sure it's an trusted environment. So that's why, you know, if you bulk enroll, that's great. But there's always going to be delay because of that bottleneck there, as we previously explained.
And it's important to know also the LinkedIn invitation limit, and also as one area too, if you did hit that, some people, we've had support requests from people that were like, hey, we don't think this is working right. And we go in and we look, and sure enough, they had triggered the LinkedIn invitation limit alert, which then by default, the Dux-Soup will go to sleep for 3 days, right? Associated with that.
3 days, yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And so you may not see anything for a few days. If that's the case, you can override that manually, right, inside of the Dux-Soup options. And then it also pertains to your planner as well, assuming that your planner is active during that time.
Yeah, so your planner allows you to control when Dux-Soup will be active. But that's a really good point that Scott makes there. So yeah, if you trigger this warning, so you see here, this was on the 10th of February last year when I triggered a warning. And I haven't cleared it because I always want to make sure there's a date stamp in there for people to be able to see. But yeah, if you trigger this warning, then Dux-Soup will snooze. Now, the default is 3 days, but my preference is to have it at 1 day because, of course, if a bunch of people accept my connection request, I will probably be able to send more the following day. And Dux-Soup will only try once, and if it triggers that warning again, it'll go to sleep again. But, you know, it's worth getting Dux-Soup to try it once a day to see if it's going to be successful in being able to move forward. So your bottleneck will be either your connection requests here, or the fact that perhaps you've triggered this invitation limit, which ideally is the thing that you want to bob along just underneath, not triggering it too often, yeah, just to keep it safe.
Okay, so Alex has come back about the SSI. His question, or her question, was, I was asking if there was any value in getting your score and sharing it. and then went on to say,
Oh.
I'm 70. Ooh. I'm not sure that there is, because it's going to change, isn't it, on a weekly basis?
It's dynamic. It changes on a daily basis.
Yeah. Yeah.
Helps, Alex.
Yeah, I personally wouldn't be sharing my SSI other than the fact that I just did to everybody who's watching this webinar. But no, as part of my outreach, I wouldn't be sharing that because yeah, it's dynamic. It would change, and yeah, I don't think there's too much value in doing that.
I suppose really quickly, if you were, it depends on who you are and who you're targeting. If you are like maybe an agency, right, trying to like sell that you can copyright and you know how to talk to people on LinkedIn and so on, and that you have a very good social selling index, that could be a part of it, I guess, in these cases. But yeah, what Giles is saying, for the most part, I think, you know, it's probably best just kept to yourself for the most part. And it
Unless
changes.
you're touting for a job in a lead gen agency, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Caleb has asked, is there a way to move a bulk group of people from one campaign to another?
Is there a way to move a bulk? Yes, there is.
Okay, good.
Cool. Next question.
Is it simple? Do we need to demo it? Or is...
there are a few different ways to do that. Oh, go ahead, Giles.
No, go on. No.
So yeah, there's a way to do it manual, like single one by one, obviously through the Dux-Dash. If you're on the Turbo or the Pro version, or sorry, Turbo or Cloud. I keep doing that. On the Turbo or the Cloud version, you can do it inside of the Dux-Dash, but it's manual and you do it one by one, right? And you can switch each person there. Other ways though you'd have to do it is you'd have to use the enroll external CSV feature right there. It says enroll from file. Inside of the Dux-Dash, and what you would have to do is go through a process of extracting the data of people that you'd like to move over to the other one from Dux-Soup. There's many ways to do that: visiting their profiles, downloading the data, or copying the campaign data right here, and then you go ahead and enroll them into a separate campaign in that case.
Yeah, the most straightforward way I would see would be to go in here. You would copy the data out of whichever campaign it is that you've got here. You would download that data, or you'd copy that data into a spreadsheet, create a CSV file, and then that CSV file you would then hit use as your enrollment, the basis for enrollment here. That would be the most straightforward way of doing it. But yeah, there are several different ways of doing it, and yeah, depends on what you require.
And the copy and paste, actually the copy version here, what Giles is showing you, this is actually really, really key because it copies it to your clipboard and you actually don't need to download anything. It just copies it right to your clipboard. You could paste it into Google Sheet, edit it. Maybe you need to scrub it for one or two people if that was the case, and then download that as a CSV and then re-upload it back. Yep.
So just to show you how that data looks, if we just create a very quick blank worksheet here in Excel, if I just copy all of this data here a second, we go to Excel, we just paste that in there. We can then see here all the people that have gone into that campaign. The crucial thing being that I've got the LinkedIn URLs here. That's the most important part there. I can see these have all gone into this particular campaign. I could now save this as a CSV file and then enroll them accordingly into a different campaign.
I'm multitasking with a response to Raymond. Hang on, Raymond. Here. There we go. Dominic has said, it seems that some of your response rates are really impressive. Could you share some message examples for great working campaigns? I suspect that might have been aimed at Scott, so I will try and dig.
Yeah. Well, I can talk about it in general.
Yeah.
In general, like, right, understand your audience and try to put yourself in the shoes of them and understand how your audience is going to perceive you, right? When you approach them and try to send them a message, are they going to look at you like a used car salesman trying to sell them from a mile away? Are you an executive connecting with other executives? Are you this kind of, like, just understanding that a little bit further, and then remembering what LinkedIn is the social media platform, just like Facebook, just like Instagram, just like all these other tools, right? It's just LinkedIn is designed for networking, right? A lot of also, I guess, finding jobs and some other things like that, right? But come in it to an approach like you are networking. What I see in general, and I'm sure Giles and team would back me up on this, is what we see not working too often is doing like hi, my name is this, and I sell this, and this is why you should buy it, and here's my link to a Calendly, and here's another link to our website, and yada yada yada, blah blah blah, and you write about 3 or 4 paragraphs. No, what we see work better is striking up a conversation and using Dux-Soup to strike up that conversation and be able to pivot that into be able to get a meeting, right? Get the acceptance from the person, get them to reply, then have a small conversation that will then lead to you executing your call to action. Is going to go a lot further. So get them talking about something that is going to be related to what it is that you're doing rather than always going directly in. Now that can change depending on your industry, depending on what you're selling, depending on what you're offering, but for the most part, in the general sort of consensus is, yeah, try to get them talking and having a conversation that can lead to you executing your call to action.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I've actually just taken the liberty of sharing a couple of examples in the handouts there. Some examples that we used previously that Scott created for another webinar that we did. They were specific to some examples that were given by some, the coaching one. And absolutely make it look like a conversation. Ask questions. Don't just force your information upon people, because people will just see it as spam. I always use the example, when you walk into a meeting, you never say, hi, my name is blah, blah, blah. This is my LinkedIn URL. You walk in and say, hi, what's your name? What do you do? Then you're going to get a response.
Yeah, I can't stress that enough. That's actually one of the things that's made me and my career so successful, actually, of using Dux-Soup as a user from back in 2018 till today. Being able to use LinkedIn to strike up conversations and get this way and be able to monitor and manage those will get you a lot further.
Perfect. Let's have a look. We've got Josh has asked another open link question. Would you recommend using open link in mails and connection requests separately so that you can maximize the outreach per month, or would it be better to make a connection request and then message request to the same person?
Yeah, everyone has their own approach, to be honest. It depends upon the market that you're targeting, depends upon the territory you're targeting, the industry. Everyone has their own approach, and horses for courses. Everyone has their own view on these things. Now, I've seen a great level of success just with outreach of connection request messages. I've seen great success with connection requests without messages. I've seen great requests within mails. So nothing is wrong. It's what works for you and what you feel most comfortable doing, to be honest.
Yep, and using Dux-Soup to be, at least on the Turbo and Cloud versions, using Dux-Soup to be able to monitor your performance and measure and A/B test those types of campaigns, and measuring that is going to be hugely important.
Thank you. Matt has asked, do we know whether Dux-Soup will be compatible with Recruiter Lite in the future?
Dux-Soup is compatible with Recruiter Lite, and you can enroll prospects. You can use Dux-Soup to engage with prospects on Recruiter Lite. It works against the search results and project lists in Recruiter Lite. But yeah, if you need more details, then ping our support team a message and they will give you a full details, and we can always engage with you accordingly and have a look at that.
Yeah, okay.
And real quick, I do have to hop for the another thing that's going on currently, but I will leave the rest of the conversation with you, Giles. And
cheers, Scott. Well. Thanks, and see you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks. Take care.
We've only got a couple more. So Dennis has said, confirming what I heard, the first few pages of results in our Sales Navigator searches are the best results, and they get less relevant the more pages they go.
Well, it's not that they get less relevant. It's just that the people who further down have a lower reputation on LinkedIn. So they may be still very relevant to your specific criteria, depending on what you're looking for. But yeah, you will find, as with most things, the cream rises to the top, because LinkedIn want, they reward good behavior on LinkedIn by giving you a better SSI, and therefore give you that recognition by not only allowing you to do more on the platform, but appearing higher up a search result. Depends very much upon your search criteria. You may be looking for people who are not achieving a massively high SSI. Then it depends upon all sorts of factors. But do take that into consideration.
Lovely, thank you very much. Ganja has said, what's the ideal approach for the APAC market? That's very specific.
that's a good question. I think I'll give an example as to what I know doesn't work. Now, I had a support call with somebody, I think it was back in October last year. They built a campaign which they had Dux-Soup Turbo, and they built a campaign which had a connection request, and then it had an auto visit a day afterwards, and a day later another message, obviously a sales message, and then another day later another sales message, and another day later a sales message. What their support call was relating to the fact that message 4 was never going. Why is my message 4 failing? And we had a look at it, and we went into the data, and basically because they were spamming people, people were blocking them by the time it got to message 4. And actually this goes probably for the world over. You know, people think, oh, if I can get messages out, I've got to send as many as possible. No, you need to actually give people time to digest your information. You need to show people respect, treat people as you would expect to be treated as well. Do not bombard people with multiple messages every week, because people will turn off. Yeah, maybe 2 messages a week if it's just a quick question. You know, like the examples that I included just there from Scott. You know, it's got a connection request followed by an acknowledgement and a brief question, and then a few days later another quick question. It's not chapter and verse promoting your services. If people see chapter and verse, you know, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs of you promoting what you do, they know it's spam. If it's got a conversation starter in there, a conversation opener, a question or 2 in there, then they're much more likely to engage with you in a positive way.
Yeah. And the last and final question, how about if I use the smart link instead of the regular link? And I'm not 100% certain I understand that, so I'm putting it in case you do.
I'm not entirely sure. What we'll have to do is if they can email our support team, the email address there on screen, if they can ping that question to that email address, I will pick that up with Vlada, who's our head of customer support, and we'll take it from there, because then we can put a bit more flesh on the bones and make sure we don't misinterpret the question and provide an incorrect answer.
Lovely. Now, one final question has come in. I think it's quite a good one, so I'm going to ask it, but there will be no more questions after this. So this is from Josh. I'm new to using Dux-Soup and Sales Navigator. Can they both be run through my company page rather than my personal profile? We're a 2-person firm with compliance being a factor in our industry, so we'd need to navigate all conversations through our company page.
So you can't log on as a company, and Dux-Soup cannot operate on behalf of a company page. So as a LinkedIn account, you can only log on as an individual, and Dux-Soup can only execute activities based upon an individual's LinkedIn page. If you've got a company page, then as users, you have then admin rights to access a company page. So be aware of that there, and just handle that with care and appropriate. So Dux-Soup only mimics behavior of an individual on the LinkedIn platform.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Well, that's it. We have actually come to the end of the questions. We're also about 10 minutes over the time, but we've still got 40 people on, so that's great.
As I said to Scott earlier today, we were going to keep it nice and concise and short today.
Yeah, well, we did. It's just that, you know, it's a popular topic.
Lots of great questions from people, and that's awesome.
So don't forget to share your reviews. Go to G2. I've put the link in the chat a couple of times. If you put today's date on and you share something lovely, then we'll get in touch with you and you can pick a cap. And all that's left to say is join us in 2 weeks, especially if you're a pro user, because we're going to be talking about the benefits of upgrading from pro to cloud. And with that, I shall bid everybody farewell, and thank you for joining us today. And thank you, Giles, and thank you, Scott, who's already left.
Cheers.
Bye. Bye-bye.